7 emotional burnouts 99% of chosen ones experience. Have you ever felt like life keeps testing you in ways that most people wouldn't understand? Like no matter how much you grow, how much wisdom you gain, how deeply you surrender to your spiritual path, the challenges just don't stop coming. If so, let me tell you something: you're not alone. There's a reason why chosen ones, the ones who are spiritually gifted, seem to go through more emotional burnouts than the average person. It's not because we're weak. It's not because we're broken. It's because we're meant to transform, to break through, to rise above every single weight that tries to hold us down. But here's the truth: most people won't tell you this path isn't easy. And the emotional burnouts that come with it, they're real. They're intense. And if you don't know how to navigate them, they can consume you. So today, we're diving deep into the 7 emotional burnouts that 99% of chosen ones experience. And as we go through them, I want you to ask yourself, how many of these have I felt? Because if you've experienced even one of them, then you're not just different, you're on a path that very few can handle. But that's also why you're here, to understand, to heal, to rise above.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
The first emotional burnout is one that hits us when we least expect it: the exhaustion of constantly being misunderstood. From the time we were children, we saw the world differently. We felt things more deeply. We questioned what others accepted without a second thought. And what did that get us? Isolation, judgment, the feeling that no one truly gets us. And I know what you're thinking: I found some people who understand me now. Maybe you have. But even then, there are moments, aren't there? Moments where you feel like no one can truly step inside your mind and feel what you feel. Like your thoughts are too vast, your emotions too deep, your soul too ancient for most people to comprehend. And over time, that takes a toll. It makes you question if you should even try to explain yourself anymore. It makes you wonder if you're meant to walk this journey alone. But here's what I want you to ask yourself: are you truly alone? Or have you just not yet found those who vibrated your frequency? Because the truth is, the more you embrace who you are, the more you attract those who are meant to walk alongside you. But that doesn't mean the pain of being misunderstood ever fully disappears. It just means you learn to carry it differently. The second emotional burnout is the weight of feeling too much. And I don't just mean your own emotions. I mean everything. The energy in a room, the unspoken pain in someone's eyes, the heaviness in the world itself. If you've ever walked into a space and immediately felt suffocated by the energy, you know exactly what I mean. It's like carrying a radio inside of you that's always picking up frequencies no one else can hear. And at first you might have thought it was a gift. Maybe you even tried to use it to help people. But over time it became too much. Because how do you keep pouring into others when your own cup is empty? How do you carry the weight of the world when you're already struggling to hold yourself together? This kind of burnout is dangerous because it doesn't just drain you, it makes you numb. It makes you disconnect, shut down, retreat into yourself just to survive. And that's the paradox of being an empath, isn't it? We feel so much that sometimes we have to stop feeling altogether just to protect ourselves. But here's what I want you to remember: your sensitivity is not your weakness. It's your superpower. But like any power, it has to be managed. You have to learn when to open your heart and when to guard it, when to absorb energy and when to let it pass through you. Otherwise, you'll drown in emotions that were never meant to be yours in the first place. The third emotional burnout is the exhaustion of always being the healer. If you're a chosen one, you already know this role too well. You're the one people come to when they're lost, when they're broken, when they need answers. And at first, maybe you embraced it. Maybe you thought, This is my purpose. This is what I'm meant to do. But then, one day you looked around and realized, who's healing me? Who's pouring into me the way I pour into others? Who's holding space for me the way I hold space for the world? And that's the moment the burnout hits. Because being a healer doesn't mean you don't need healing too. Being strong for others doesn't mean you don't need someone to be strong for you. But this is where so many of us struggle. We don't ask for help. We don't let people see us when we're vulnerable. Why? Because we've convinced ourselves that we have to be the strong one. That if we fall apart, everything else will crumble too. But let me ask you this, when was the last time you let yourself be held? Truly held? Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. When was the last time you let someone else carry your burdens? Because if you don't allow yourself to receive, you will burn out. You will reach a point where you have nothing left to give. And the world needs your light, yes. But it also needs you to last. The fourth emotional burnout is the loneliness of spiritual awakening. No one tells you this before you wake up. No one prepares you for the fact that as you rise, you will leave people behind. You will outgrow friendships. You will walk away from relationships that no longer align with your soul. You will find yourself in places where you look around and think, I don't belong here anymore. And that realization, it's heartbreaking. Because you don't just lose people, you lose versions of yourself. You lose the comfort of ignorance. You lose the illusion of belonging in spaces that were never meant for you. And that kind of loneliness, it's different from any other kind. It's not just about missing people. It's about missing who you used to be, even if you know you can never go back. So what do you do? Do you shrink yourself just to fit in again? Do you dim your light just to feel accepted? Or do you keep walking forward, even if it means walking alone for a while? Because here's the thing, loneliness is not the end of the journey. It's a passage, a threshold. And on the other side of it, there are souls who will see you, who will understand you, who will reflect back to you the truth of who you are. But you have to be willing to walk through the solitude first. And that brings me to the fifth emotional burnout, the exhaustion of knowing too much. Once you wake up, you can't go back to sleep. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. And while that's powerful, it's also exhausting, because most of the world is still asleep. Most people are still trapped in illusions that you've already broken free from. And watching that, navigating that, trying to exist in a world that doesn't see what you see, it can make you feel like you don't belong anywhere. But let me ask you this, is knowledge a curse, or is it a responsibility? Because maybe you weren't given this awareness to make you suffer. Maybe you were given it to light the way for others. But that doesn't mean it won't weigh heavy on you. And if you don't learn how to carry it with grace, it will break you. The silent battle, when your soul is tired but the world keeps demanding more. There comes a point in the journey of every chosen one when the exhaustion isn't just physical. It isn't just mental. It's something deeper, something ancient. A soulful fatigue that no amount of sleep can cure. Have you ever felt that? Like your spirit itself is tired. Like you've been carrying this unseen weight for lifetimes, and no matter how much you grow, no matter how much you surrender, it never fully disappears. This is one of the deepest emotional burnouts of all, the exhaustion of holding the light in a world that constantly tries to dim it. Because let's be honest, being spiritually awakened doesn't mean life gets easier. If anything, it gets harder. The more you see, the more you feel. The more you understand, the more you realize how much work there is left to do, not just within yourself, but in the world. And that weight, it's relentless. You wake up every day knowing you were meant for something greater, but some days, that purpose feels like a burden more than a blessing. Some days you just want to rest, to exist without feeling the pressure to grow, to heal, to transform. But the world doesn't stop. The responsibilities don't stop. People still need you. Life still demands you to show up. And somewhere along the way, you stop asking yourself the most important question of all: what do I need? Because here's the thing, chosen ones are givers, healers, guides. But when was the last time you allowed yourself to receive? When was the last time you let yourself just be without trying to fix, solve, or uplift? The burnout comes when you forget that you are human too, that even the strongest souls need rest, that even the brightest lights need moments of darkness to recharge. And then there's the guilt of feeling tired when you know how much work there is to be done, the guilt of wanting to retreat when people look to you for guidance, the guilt of feeling lost when you're supposed to have the answers. But let me ask you this: who told you that you always have to be strong? Who made you believe that your worth is tied to how much you can endure? Because that belief, it's a lie. Strength isn't about never breaking. It's about knowing when to step back, when to breathe, when to surrender. And if you don't allow yourself that, the burnout will consume you. The very gifts that make you powerful will become the chains that trap you. And that's not why you were chosen. You weren't chosen to suffer. You weren't chosen to sacrifice yourself for everyone else while neglecting your own soul. You were chosen to thrive, to embody the very healing you offer to others. But thriving requires rest. It requires boundaries. It requires the courage to say, I need time. I need space. I need to pour into myself before I pour into the world. And if you've been feeling that deep exhaustion, if your soul has been whispering for you to slow down, maybe it's time to listen. Maybe it's time to stop carrying everything alone. Because the truth is, you don't have to. You never did. And that brings me to the hardest lesson of all, the lesson of surrender. Because sometimes the burnout isn't about doing too much. It's about holding on too tightly to expectations, to control, to the idea that you have to figure everything out on your own. But what if you didn't? What if the universe has been waiting for you to release, to trust, to let yourself be guided instead of always trying to lead? Ask yourself this: what would happen if I let go? If I allowed myself to rest, to receive, to be held by the very forces that have always supported me? Because maybe, just maybe, your next breakthrough isn't in pushing harder. Maybe it's in stepping back, in allowing the divine to catch you. The heavy crown, when being chosen feels like a curse instead of a gift. There's a part of this journey that no one talks about. A part that feels too dark, too raw, too contradictory to the idea of being spiritually gifted. It's the moment when you start to ask yourself, why me? When the weight of your awareness, your purpose, your very existence starts to feel like too much to carry. Because let's be honest, being chosen isn't always a blessing. Some days it feels like a curse. Some days you wish you could unsee, unfeel, unknow everything that makes you different. You watch others move through life so effortlessly, so unaware of the depths you've drowned in. And part of you envies them, doesn't it? The simplicity, the ignorance, the ability to just exist without questioning, without searching, without carrying the weight of truth in a world built on illusions. And here's the dangerous part: this is where many chosen ones fall. Not because they're weak, but because they're tired. Tired of fighting battles no one sees. Tired of healing wounds that never seem to fully close. Tired of growing, evolving, breaking, and rebuilding while the rest of the world keeps spinning like none of it matters. Have you felt that? That silent anger, that quiet resentment toward the very thing that makes you who you are. It's okay if you have. It doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you real. Because the truth is, this path will test you. It will strip you down to your core and ask you to find strength in the places you thought were empty. And in those moments, you will have a choice to let the weight of being chosen crush you or to rise despite it. But here's what most people don't realize: rising doesn't mean forcing yourself to be okay. It doesn't mean pretending the burden doesn't exist. It means acknowledging the exhaustion, the frustration, the pain, and still choosing to move forward. It means accepting that yes, this path is hard. Yes, it will break you. Yes, it will make you question everything, including yourself. But it will also remake you stronger, wiser, more aligned with the truth of who you are. Because here's what I need you to understand: the weight you carry isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to shape you, to refine you, to prepare you for something greater than you can see right now. And I know that doesn't make it easier. I know that doesn't erase the loneliness, the exhaustion, the longing for something lighter. But let me ask you this: would you really trade it? If given the chance, would you choose to go back? To live in the illusion, to forget everything you've awakened to? Really think about that. Because if the answer is no, then you already know the truth. You already know that despite the weight, despite the pain, despite the moments of doubt, you were meant for this. And that means one thing: you don't have to carry it alone. So let me ask you one more thing. What if you stopped fighting the weight and started learning how to wear it? What if, instead of seeing it as a burden, you saw it as the very thing that proves your strength? Because a heavy crown only rests on the heads of those built to hold it. And you, chosen one, were built for this. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the pain no longer breaks you, it transforms you. A moment when you realize that every hardship, every heartbreak, every dark night of the soul wasn't meant to destroy you but to forge you. Because let's be honest, you've already survived the worst. You've endured the loneliness, the exhaustion, the weight of knowing too much and feeling too deeply. And yet, here you are, still standing, still searching for meaning, still willing to rise. That's not weakness. That's power. But here's where most people get stuck. They keep waiting for the weight to disappear. They keep waiting for the world to suddenly understand them, for the burdens to lift, for life to finally feel easy. But that's not how this works. The truth is, the challenges won't stop coming. The world won't suddenly become softer just because you've grown. But you can change. You can become the kind of person who doesn't just endure the weight but wields it, who doesn't just carry the pain but alchemizes it into wisdom, strength, and purpose. And that shift, that's where everything changes. Because the moment you stop seeing your struggles as punishments and start seeing them as initiations, you step into your true power. I think about it: every great leader, every true visionary, every soul that has ever changed the world has walked through the fire first. They've been broken, tested, stripped of everything they thought they were so that they could become who they were meant to be. And that's exactly what's happening to you. You weren't chosen because it's easy. You were chosen because you have the capacity to transform not just yourself, but the people around you, the energy of spaces you enter, the very frequency of this world. And that transformation starts the moment you stop resisting your path and start owning it. But let's get practical. How do you do that? How do you take everything you've been through and use it to fuel your purpose instead of letting it drain you? First, you have to reclaim your energy. Stop giving it away to people who don't value it. Stop pouring into relationships, jobs, and environments that only take from you without giving anything in return. You are not here to be a bottomless well for others to drain. You are here to create, to build, to lead. And that requires energy. That requires boundaries. That requires the courage to say no to what no longer serves you so that you can say yes to what truly aligns with your soul. Second, you have to redefine what strength looks like. Strength isn't just about pushing through, enduring, or carrying an impossible load. Real strength is knowing when to rest, when to ask for help, when to let go of the things that are no longer meant for you. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is surrender to trust that you don't have to figure everything out alone, that the universe, your guides, your higher self will meet you halfway if you allow them to. And finally, you have to step into your purpose fully without apology, without hesitation, without waiting for permission. Because here's the truth, the world needs you. It needs your wisdom, your perspective, your gifts. It needs you to show up as your most authentic, powerful self. And if you keep dimming your light, if you keep playing small, you're not just holding yourself back, you're holding back the very impact you were meant to make. So let me ask you one final question. What would happen if you stopped resisting your power and started embracing it? If you stopped waiting for the perfect moment and just became the person you were always meant to be? Because that moment, that choice, it's here. It's now. And the only thing standing between you and the life you were destined for is the belief that you are already enough, that you are already ready. You've carried the weight. You've walked through the fire. Now it's time to rise. This is your rebirth. This is your time. Step into it.